Hey everybody and welcome to the video. I thought it might be of some value to you today to discuss what I take with me on a 50k run. Now the last time I did a 50k run, the run itself had a halfway point where I was able to get a couple of things on board which I'll discuss with you later. But this weekend is going to be self-supported, at least for me. I'm running with two other people and their approach to the run may be slightly different. However, I thought I'd share with you what I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to be preparing myself to run that distance without the need for additional resources from elsewhere. So first and foremost, it's important to look at the weather. The weather's looking really favourable, so while some of the items I show you today might not be relevant for my run, I want to just let you know what I have prepared because I had it all to one side anyway, so I thought I'd just kind of talk you through that. So there are two ways of doing this. I have done it before, running a marathon distance using two handhelds like this one here, but because we're going just over that distance and I'm being self-sufficient, I decide that I'll be using my vest instead. So the vest I have is the Ultra Pro from Camelback. Up front you can put two bottles in, which I'll share with you in a moment, mobile phone up here for safety, and then I'll let you know all the other things I'm stuffing in the back and at the sides for my journey. So at its very base, I'm going to be working with the vest and two soft flasks here. So that's going to have 1,000 millilitres of water fluid in. I'm actually going to be using a combination of water and tailwind, which I'll share with you in a moment. I will also be taking with me the handheld. That gives me additional 500 ml of fluid, and I can store anything else I need to in the front of the zip pocket here, which will typically be gels, which I'll talk to you about also. So that's what I'm working with in terms of the fluid distribution. So I've got water and I've got tailwind. I'm going to be using a combination of the Naked flavour and the caffeinated green tea buzz. That should be fine for me to do the distance with, as long as I've got these two, probably up front the flask and the water in the handheld. In terms of hydration, it's really important to take into account the temperature on the day. Sometimes the day doesn't always appear to be as warm as you would think, but actually that does get to you and you can lose a lot of salts quite quickly and you can very easily run into trouble, feel a little bit disorientated, nauseous, and all things you don't really want to go wrong with the run can very quickly do so. So I'm going to be mindful that on the day that we go for the run, I'll be running at a nice careful pace and making sure I drink fluid every kilometre. Now I've always actually done that as part of kind of a routine, a bit of a habit I suppose. I always have a sip every kilometre just to keep things ticking along and ticking over. So that is the hydration side of things. Now gels, I'm a fan of Spring Energy gels. So at the moment I've got 5 here. 5's probably more than enough with the tailwind as well. I doubt I'll be using that amount, but they're there as a backup, as a safety net. I always take with me as well a Cliff bar. I've got the nut butter bar as well. So two options for kind of real food, if you like. That will be what I'm using to fuel my run. So I've got my water, I've got my tailwind, I've got my gels, and I've got some real food. I have in the past taken along with me some dried fruit as well. Depends on personal preference, how you sort of want to manage it. It's not a particularly super challenging route, so I'm not going to be going up high with massive elevation. It's not into hills and mountains and things of that nature, so I don't need to be too worried about having extra food on me in case things were to go wrong. I won't be camping out overnight or anything. A couple of things to be thinking about when you're out there being self-sufficient. First aid kit, really important. I kind of made my own. I've got some Compeed blister plasters, some standard plasters, the foil blanket, some pins, some wipes, all the things you might need. With the current times they are, it's important, I think, to have some sanitizer with you, especially if you do choose to go into a shop, because you need to, I think, just to be safe and sensible there, especially if you are taking on board real food as well. Just sanitize your hands. I've also got tissues here, but I do prefer, in a smaller packet, the biodegradable wet wipes. They are useful for many things, as you can imagine. Sometimes we do need to have a little toilet stop en route to ensure that you do not have any chafing issues. And I'm fortunate that I don't actually tend to suffer with this, and I'll explain a few reasons why I think that is at the moment. I use a squirrel's nut butter here. You can use Body Glide, Just make sure you cover all the areas. I like to really focus on the feet, make sure they're nice and smooth and slippery. And for the gentlemen, you just make sure you cover your regions well. So that takes into account the general bits and pieces that you're going to need on your person to make sure that you can maintain a good, healthy body for the day, keeping things on the straight and narrow and looking after yourself. What I also like to do as well, if I want to remove some of the weight from my vest, and if I want to be a little bit more free, I'll use a naked band. This naked band's fantastic. You can stuff loads of things into it. I could actually probably stow my water bottles as well when I've used them in the back of these to free up the vest more. I could certainly put first aid kits and the Cliff Bars and gels. When it comes to headwear, really important that you've got a nice lightweight material to keep your head warm should you need it. It's so light that I can actually just stow that away and take it with me regardless of the temperatures or conditions, just in case things start to go downhill. I've also got a cap here that's very lightweight and breathable and is also waterproof. So this can double up as a useful hat and hood combination when I am running and it starts to rain. Linked to that, it's important to be prepared and have yourself a waterproof jacket. This is a Salomon Bonatti jacket, not one of my favourite jackets really at all, but it has got the higher level of waterproof functionality, and it also can be folded up into, where I can find it, somewhere over this side, into the pocket. So that folds up into a sort of little pack like this, and that can be put into your vest. Unless it's due to rain significantly, that will not be coming with me on Saturday. So as we move down the body now, I like to wear bright clothing because especially if you're on the trails, I think then worst case scenario, you could be seen by a ranger, you could be seen by air ambulance. If you're wearing dark colours, not always the most appropriate choice for trail running. So I've got a nice bright short sleeve. If it's a warm day, short sleeve is fine. And if it's a chillier day, then I have a bright, over the top, long sleeve number as well. So they're the two options. And you can see here, I always take with me my light, bright Salomon gloves because these can just be worn at the start whilst things are warming up. And you can throw them in the vest and they, again, weigh very, very little. The main thing is if you're going to take anything else with you, even as a backup, make sure it's the most lightweight option available to you. A lot of these things are personal preference, but my shorts here, I've got the Salomon shorts. Seems like I'm endorsed by Salomon, doesn't it? But I'm really not. And these have actually got a 360 band, similar to the naked band, but the naked band's got a large capacity and has a better functionality. But these are there as another option for me to stow some items in the band if I need to. I happen to use compression sleeves. A lot of people do, a lot of people don't. So each their own. These are from Compressed Sport. I just think on those longer distances, it's nice to be able to sort of give your body a sense of comfort. And for me, Compressed Sport have always been fantastic for calf sleeves. Have used other brands, but they're the ones for me. Now, probably the most important thing above all is your sock choice. So I use Drymax socks. I've got a slightly sort of shorter ankle sock here and a slightly longer trail sock here. Again, depending on the terrain, depending on the environment, which one would you go with? Whatever you choose, make sure they are the right thing for you. Don't try anything new, clearly, on a day like that. They've got to be a comfortable pair of socks. In fact, I don't ever wear a new pair. It's always tend to be a well-worn-in pair. So that, make sure squirrel's nut butter all over the toes. Absolutely superb. I think the socks are the one thing that can really help to support you having a really great day. The next thing is the shoes. As I mentioned, we've got fair weather on Saturday, so therefore it should mean that I'll be able to get away with wearing these here. These are the Hoka ATR Challenger 6, and these are just built as a standard shoe. There is the Gore-Tex version, which I've also got. That would obviously be suitable for wet conditions, which we're hoping not to have. And it's going to be dry all week. But I've got either or choice there so that I am well prepared should I require either of those. The combination with the socks, nice pair of shoes. I go for the wide fit, just gives me room for my toes to breathe and wiggle, especially on warmer days as we head towards the summer. That is the collection of things that I'll be taking with me. Some will be being left behind, depending on the weather, on the day, how things might change, depending on the time we set off and the anticipated finish time. But overall, that's what I'm taking with me to be self-supported. Obviously, it's really, really important that you take a mobile phone with you. Make sure if you've got a GPS function on there that you can share it with somebody, friends, family, people who are aware of where you may well be throughout the course of the day. You could use Find My Friends, what 3 words, a few different things you could do to pin drop your location so that people know your whereabouts, especially if things get a little bit tricky for you or difficult. It's really important just to share that information. Don't just creep out the door and hope that people will understand where you're off to and how long you're going to take. That's really important. Carrying some cash. Obviously, it's good to have a little bit of a backup plan there should you need it, should you stop by anywhere. The route we're taking, we do pass shops, so there is a safety net also, but in terms of the day, I plan to be completely self-sufficient with no intention of stopping to refuel unless it was absolutely critical or necessary. Hopefully you found that of some value. That's what I'm taking with me. Let me know down below if there's anything that you would add as extra, or your experience with a self-supported 50k or more. Thanks again. Checking with you soon.